You have been carrying a weight that was never yours to hold. You wake up feeling drained before the day even begins. You replay conversations in your head, searching for the exact moment things shifted, wondering what you could have said differently. You try to be more patient, more understanding, more careful with your words, and still, you feel like you are losing yourself. That exhaustion is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you have been operating in a space where the rules were never meant to be fair. You were not the problem. The dynamic itself was designed to keep you uncertain, to keep you giving, to keep you adjusting yourself to fit a moving target. What you are experiencing is not a reflection of your worth. It is the result of a pattern that thrives on imbalance. When you finally step back and look at the full picture, you will see that your confusion, your fatigue, and your self-doubt were not random. They were the natural byproduct of a system that relies on your compliance to keep running. Understanding this is not about assigning blame. It is about reclaiming your footing. You cannot protect your peace if you do not first understand how it was taken. To protect yourself, you need to see the mechanics behind the behavior. This pattern does not begin with loud arguments or obvious cruelty. It begins quietly. It starts with attention, with intensity, with a feeling that you are finally being seen. Then, slowly, the focus shifts from who you are to what you can provide. This is the core mechanism at play. It is a system of emotional leverage built on uncertainty. The person operating within this pattern does not relate to you as an equal partner in a shared reality. They relate to you as a source of regulation. Your attention, your empathy, your willingness to accommodate becomes the fuel. When that fuel runs low, the tactics shift. When it is abundant, the praise returns. This cycle is not random. It is a learned way of maintaining control without ever having to take accountability for it. You are not dealing with a communication breakdown. You are dealing with a structural imbalance. One person sets the emotional temperature, and the other is expected to adjust. Once you recognize that this is how the system functions, you stop taking the instability personally. You begin to see it for what it is, a method of control disguised as a relationship. You will notice this control in the way reality seems to bend around them. One day, the agreement is clear. The next day, you are told you never understood it at all. You find yourself apologizing for things you did not do, or for reactions that were completely reasonable. This is not a misunderstanding. It is a deliberate shift in perspective. The psychology behind it is straightforward. When someone cannot tolerate being wrong or being seen as flawed, they will quietly rewrite the narrative. They will shift the blame, minimize your experience, and make you question your own memory. It happens because admitting fault would require a level of self-awareness that the pattern actively avoids. Instead of facing discomfort, they project it onto you. They make you the source of the tension, so they do not have to examine their own role in creating it. The impact on you is heavy and cumulative. You start doubting your judgment. You stop trusting your instincts. You learn to monitor your tone, your expressions, your timing, all to avoid setting off a reaction you cannot predict. Over time, this constant self-editing drains your emotional reserves. You are no longer living your life. You are managing theirs. You become a caretaker of someone else's fragile self-image, while your own needs are quietly pushed to the margins. The truth is simple. You do not need to prove your reality to someone who benefits from confusing it. Your confusion is not a personal failing. It is the intended result of a system that relies on your uncertainty to function. When you stop trying to convince them of what you know, the weight begins to lift. Another layer of this dynamic is the push and pull that keeps you anchored. You will experience moments of deep connection, followed by sudden distance. You will be praised for your loyalty, then quietly punished for asking for clarity. This inconsistency is not accidental. It is the engine of the dynamic. The psychology behind it is rooted in how the human brain responds to unpredictable rewards. When affection, approval, or peace is given sporadically, your nervous system stays on high alert, waiting for the next positive shift. You adapt to survive the uncertainty. You work harder. You try to anticipate their needs. You hope that if you just get it right, the good moments will return. The impact is a steady erosion of your boundaries. You begin to normalize behavior that you would never accept in any other relationship. You tell yourself it is temporary. You tell yourself they are just going through something. But the pattern does not change, because your compliance only reinforces it. The more you adjust, the more the system expects you to adjust. You are left emotionally depleted, carrying a quiet grief for the person you used to be before you learned to walk on eggshells. What you are feeling is not weakness. It is the natural response to an environment that demands constant adaptation. Your exhaustion is proof that you have been trying to make sense of something that was never meant to make sense. You do not need to earn the right to feel safe. You only need to step out of the cycle that keeps you guessing. The turning point does not arrive through a dramatic confrontation. It arrives through quiet observation. It begins when you stop asking why they are doing this and start asking what this is doing to you. You start noticing the timing of the apologies. You notice how quickly the topic shifts when accountability is introduced. You notice how your own voice becomes softer, smaller, more hesitant the longer you stay in the space. This awareness is not about blame. It is about clarity. You are gathering information about how the dynamic operates so you can stop participating in it blindly. You begin to separate their behavior from your self-worth. You realize that their need for control says everything about their internal state and nothing about your value. You start to see that your empathy, which has been used against you, is actually a strength. It just needs to be directed inward first. You learn to pause before you react. You learn to notice the difference between a genuine connection and a performance designed to keep you engaged. This shift in perspective is where your power begins to return. Not as a weapon, but as a quiet recognition of what is real and what is manufactured. You stop looking for consistency in someone who thrives on inconsistency. You stop expecting emotional maturity from a pattern built on emotional avoidance. You simply observe. You name what you see. You trust the data your nervous system has been collecting, and in that stillness, the fog begins to clear. Protecting yourself does not require a loud declaration. It requires consistent, calm boundaries. A boundary is not a threat. It is a simple statement of what you will no longer participate in. When the manipulation begins, you do not need to argue with it. You only need to step away from it. You limit the information you share. You stop offering lengthy explanations for your decisions. You stop trying to manage their emotions. You respond to pressure with stillness. You respond to confusion with clarity about your own limits. You practice what is often called emotional detachment, but it is really just emotional self-preservation. You are not shutting down. You are choosing where to place your attention. You stop feeding the cycle with your anxiety, your over-explaining, your desperate attempts to restore peace. You let the silence do the work. You let them experience the natural consequence of their behavior without you cushioning it. This is how you protect your peace. Not by fighting fire with fire, but by refusing to carry the match. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your mental space. You stop waiting for an apology that will not come, and you start building a life that does not depend on their approval. Your self-respect is no longer negotiable. It becomes the baseline. You learn to walk away from conversations that go in circles. You learn to say no without guilt. You learn to trust the quiet voice inside you that has been trying to guide you all along. You do not need to announce your exit. You simply stop participating in the performance. You become uninteresting to the pattern. You stop reacting. You stop justifying. You stop trying to win a game that was rigged from the start. Peace is not something you negotiate with someone who thrives on chaos. It is something you protect by refusing to engage with the game. Your calm is your shield. Your consistency is your anchor. You do not have to win the argument. You only have to win back your own mind. The healing that follows this shift is not instant, but it is steady. It begins the moment you stop blaming yourself for being kind in a situation that required distance. It grows when you realize that stepping back is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of survival. You will notice the weight lifting slowly. The constant background anxiety will quiet down. The need to check in, to fix things, to make sure they are okay, will lose its grip. You will start sleeping better. You will start thinking clearly again. You will remember what it feels like to make a decision without calculating the emotional fallout. This is what moving forward looks like. It is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about becoming whole. You are reclaiming the energy you spent trying to stabilize someone else, and you are redirecting it toward your own life. You are learning that your peace is not a luxury. It is a requirement. You will still encounter difficult people, but they will no longer have the same power over you. You will recognize the patterns quickly. You will set your boundaries early. You will walk away before the confusion takes root. You will trust yourself again. And that trust, once restored, becomes unshakable. You do not need closure from the person who caused the damage. You create it yourself by choosing a different path. By choosing stillness over chaos, by choosing truth over performance, by choosing yourself, not out of pride, but out of necessity. The road ahead is quiet, but it is yours. You have already survived the hardest part. You recognized the pattern. You named the exhaustion. You chose to step back. Now, you simply keep walking. Your peace is waiting, and it has been yours all along.